Have you been to Filey before?
Oh, about 20 years in succession.
20 years. Now, why do you keep coming back year after year?
I enjoy it. It's quiet. Well, it's a beautiful little place. I don't know a nicer beach on the East Coast.
You know, you have so much natural beauty, natural facilities, the brig, the beach and so on. That never changes, never will change, and that's the attraction.
We like it because it's quieter. We like the beach. We like the sea. You can get to it. You can also park, which is always a good thing.
What about the children? What do they think?
Oh, she loves it. Don't you, sweetheart?
The quiet magnificence of Filey Bay is how the tourist brochures describe this East Coast scene. And peace and quiet, fishing and family holidays really sum the whole place up. Filey is a seaside resort that has a little of everything a seaside resort should have. There's a nice little prom, a few colourful boats, and a 6-mile stretch of safe and sandy beach that runs right out to Flamborough Head. And on the other side of the bay, the great headland of Carr Naze, and below it, the rocky spit they call Filey Brig. It's a good place to start to learn a little about Filey. Some say this curious finger of rocks harbouring the bay is unnaturally straight, and that perhaps it was a jetty for the Roman galleys. Certainly there was a Roman emperor who bathed in a rock pool just nearby. But what was once a Roman outpost is now a nature trail, and armed with a guide, Mum, Dad and the kids can explore the mysteries of winkles and whelks, fossils and flora on a 1-mile route round the brig. The guide will tell you the Japanese eat 30 different varieties of seaweed. And if that's a bit much to stomach, well, you can just stand and reflect on those splendid views. In the northern distance, Caton Bay and Scarborough Castle. And below your very feet, the point where Yorkshire meets the North Sea. It was here, at the brig, that Filey's role as a holiday resort began. Well, Mike Fearon is secretary of the Filey Historical Society. Mike, was there one focal point that started the whole thing off?
Yes, I think if there was, it would be when they discovered a spring of water whose water was so bitter and horrible that they felt it really must be doing them good if they drank it. And spas were then very fashionable. And Scarborough had a spa, so Filey obviously thought it ought to have a spa too. And they found it on a very good site, just overlooking the sea, so they thought obviously this was the place to develop. So that was in the 18th century sometime, so I think that would be the time really when Filey began to be a resort.
And they set up a proper baths in the town too, didn't they?
Yes, on the foreshore, what's now the Ackworth House was then known as the Baths, and this was really a good place where you went to have a seawater bath, or you went to drink the water that came from the spa.
So when did Filey begin to change from the little fishing village to the holiday town that we see now?
Well, about the early 19th century, when people began to realise that Filey had one of the finest beaches on the East Coast, and it was very safe for children, and so people began then to bathe in the sea, which was then really for medicinal purposes more than for enjoyment. And you were recommended, if you were of a not too healthy, to go and have a checkup with a doctor before you actually went into the sea. So then from there, of course, it developed, and 1 or 2 boarding houses were built. And then perhaps the greatest thing was when a Birmingham solicitor called John Unit bought about 11 acres of Filey and saw its possibilities, and then built over the next few years, from about 1835 onwards, the Crescent and the Crescent Gardens.
They're rather splendid buildings too, aren't they?
Yes, certainly amongst the best in the country as a seaside resort development. Yeah.
So he was a sort of speculative builder, was he?
Yes, I would think so, yes, but obviously a man with a great vision and a conscience, because what he built, he really built very well indeed.
In fact, that Crescent has hardly changed at all to this day, has it?
No, not a bit. No, it's almost identical with what it was. Of course, what's happened behind the facade has changed. What were boarding houses are now flats. What was the Crescent Hotel is now also flats, but from the front, no, it's not changed at all.
It was a pretty smart place at the turn of the century, wasn't it? What sort of people came here?
Well, this was one of the things really that I think helped Filey's development. The Princess Royal brought her children, and the Battenbergs realised that it was a nice place to be, and the Duke of Norfolk and lots of other people like that also came.
It was pretty posh then, was it?
It was rather select, and it was fashionable. perhaps a little bit more so than Scarborough, which dealt with the masses rather than people came to Filey as a rather more select place. And one of the great features, of course, was when the nannies paraded with the children in the prams, and of course they all dressed exactly as nannies used to do.
What sort of entertainment would the old-timers have on the beach?
Not a great deal. I think they felt if they wanted entertainment, they should go to Scarborough, but there were entertainments in the baths. People came and did readings and songs at the piano and this kind of thing. The Pierrots, too, were a great feature of Filey, and one that a lot of people will recall with affection. They arrived in the late 1890s and really kept going remarkably well until the Second World War. Extremely popular. Andy Kane was the great name amongst the Pierrots in Filey.
What are they, sort of song and dance act, were they?
Yes, they dressed up in the traditional Pierrot costume, and if fine, they were outside on the beach or on the foreshore. In the evenings too, they had a little place called the Sylvan Glade, where they went to, and there people after dinner would go along to hear the songs that were popular at the time.
Was it always a family holiday place as it is now?
Yes, it was really, because I think Filey obviously has a lot of advantages. Very little traffic, a marvellously safe beach. The sea bathing was very safe and secure, and really people realised how good it was for children.
Then as now?
Yes, indeed. Yes, it's not changed at all in that respect.
If the holidaymakers are now the lifeblood of Filey, its heart is still its fishermen. It always was and still is, at least in the minds of these men, primarily a fishing town. The fortunes of the fishing trade have forever been the fortunes of Filey. The fishermen have always dominated the life of the town. The characters became, and still often are, local legends in their own time. And behind the scenes, the wives still learned their trade at their grandmother's knee, as their grandmothers did before them. These days, you can't really come to Filey without visiting the Cobble Landing, named after the special fishing boat they use here, the Filey Cobble. If you can manage it, about 6 o'clock in the morning is best. Then you can see nearly all the town's fishermen setting out. By about 11, they're coming back with their catch and preparing for an afternoon taking the holidaymakers out fishing. Well, I'm joined now by George Harrison, who's been fishing from Filey for all his life. He's been mayor of Filey these 3 years now, and although he's retired from fishing, he is, to some extent, the elder statesman of Filey fishing. George, they tell me that there are only 3 families that run the fishing out of Filey, is that right?
Well, we have a Camish, we've got a Jenkinson, we've got the Axbys, we have a Wyville, and that's about it. They've gone back generations, you know, it's hereditary with the family names.
Must be a bit confusing, though, all these names.
Oh, no, and they have nicknames. We have cousins, etc., which have got the same names, but it doesn't make any difference. If you ask for one, you'll be confused if you pointed to one man one day and another. They have bonzos, and they have chickens, and they have tutors, and they have all kinds of nicknames that you can't remember at times, you know. But immediately you get hold of the man, and you know who it is.
Now listen, I'm a bit puzzled about the boat, because I've seen fishing cobbles from other ports, and they're not shaped anything like this one. What's different about the traditional Filey cobble?
This is a Yorkshire cobble. He's made of his own building. It's mostly at Whitby. You'll notice this is Keeley, for instance. It's got a deep fork plate on it, and very, very deep, really.
So what's that for?
It's for bringing up onto the sand, you see. It swings the boat round, and it's easier to pull up on the sands, etc. Plus the fact that it makes it a better boat into the sea, especially when they're all in lines in the winter and pots and it swings around. And they've got a fine stern on and they lift onto it.
George, what do you make of this for a catch?
Oh, it's poor. It's not worth going for. By the time the fella's got up at 4 o'clock this morning, and paid for the pot bait, etc., he's come away with nothing.
Well, a pair of nice sea trout here, aren't they?
Yes, but you want more than that to make a living, you see. There's 3 people in the boat. And the nets are there today, etc., and you have to mess around, and you may catch 2, you may catch 3, you may catch a dozen. But then, on the other hand, on a few more days, you may get nothing.
Let's have a look at the crabs, shall we?
Crabs, yeah.
How do you tell a male from a female, for example?
Well, that is a female, you see. You see this part here?
So
that's where the eggs are, underneath there.
Yeah. And the male?
That's where the claws are, and if you don't get out of the way, they'll get you.
Right, what about the male?
I'll get a male. There's a small male. You see this part here now? It's much smaller. That is.
And what will these sell for on the market?
Well, a couple of pound of stone, I should imagine. It varies, you see. It depends on the quality of the things and the quantity. But
Is the living as good as it used to be for the Filey fishermen?
well, it fluctuates. Everything fluctuates today, you know. Sometimes you have a good week, sometimes a bad week. It finishes up square, you know. You wouldn't see these cobbles around here otherwise, would you?
That's your son's cobble coming in now, George,
Oh,
isn't it?
yes, he's sowing in.
How long's he been out?
Well, he's been out since 4 o'clock this morning.
And how's he been getting on? Any idea?
Well, he's got 6 fishes, he tells me, which isn't so bad. It isn't good, mind you, since 4 o'clock. I think he'll do this shot. He'll just put the net in now for this high water, and then he'll quit for the day.
So he's setting the nets again now, is he?
No, he's going now with it, and you can see what happens, you see. There's the engine going, and he comes out straight here, and he goes on a straight line. Well, right today, he'll have to go to an angle to get behind that man there.
How long is that net? How far
Well,
will
it's
it go?
about, by the time you've finished making the bend, which finishes around in a big circle at the other end, it's about 300 yards. You're all by lot have 400. But we have about 300. You don't want too much because the further you get out, the more tide there is, and it's harder to hold. And then the fish is, the net's tight, and then the fish can't get at it.
Well, it's a pretty warm and sunny day now, but how dangerous does the sea get round these parts?
Oh, it's bad. You've got the North Sea. It's a choppy one, you know. Those big oil rigs have found out all about that. So it's a treacherous one. 1 minute can be like this, and another, not so much this time of the year, but winter time it can be like this, and away it comes away. Normally in a minute or two. Lifeboat goes off many a time for them in the winter time where they've been caught.
Filey's rightly proud of its lifeboat. In its 150 years, they've saved over 260 lives. Today's launch is happily just a practice, but they can get called out even on a calm day. The volunteer waiting to be rescued is from the sailing club. Usually, experienced yachtsmen like Tom Patrick don't get into this kind of trouble. And if they do, well, they have their own rescue launch. More often, it's a holiday maker on a rubber dinghy who finds himself carried out to sea by the tide. Or further out, a Filey cobble caught in rough water. Because there's no harbour at Filey, the lifeboat has to be launched from the beach. So the first step is to get it down the cobble landing to prepare for launching. Even so, after the distress call has gone out, the unfortunate victim only has to wait 6 minutes before the lifeboat is in the water.
Coast Guard lifeboat, we are launched to exercise, going down channel 0, constant watch.
The crew of 7 are almost always fishermen, and although it can be extremely dangerous and the pay is only a small nominal sum, they're never short of volunteers. In the long run, it's an insurance policy for their own lives and the lives of their sons and fathers.
Filey Coast Guard, this is Filey lifeboat, channel 0, over.
Today they're joined by one of 3 RAF Whirlwind helicopters based at Leconfield. They arrive at 100 miles an hour just 14 minutes after the distress call. And for Tom Patrick, rescue is at hand. Safely aboard the lifeboat, first aid's available from the crew. If it was serious, they could get a doctor on board or fly the victim to professional medical treatment. And they've even saved his dinghy. Well, there's been a Jenkinson on the lifeboat for as long as anyone can remember. The present coxswain for the last 13 years is Tom Jenkinson. Tom, that was obviously a practice, but how often does it happen like that for real?
Oh, quite often. mostly in winter time where we escort the boats, the local couples. But we get quite a few calls out in the summer for holiday makers, which get cut off on the rocks and dinghies blowing out to sea, especially days like this with upland winds.
Where do you get your crewmen from?
Well, they're all volunteers, for one thing. Most of them are fishermen that are in the boat now. And if we're at sea, there's always hands that will volunteer to go and take the lifeboat.
What sort of guys are they?
Oh, just ordinary lads, most of them.
But they face some pretty horrifying seas out there, isn't it? What does it make them do that sort of thing?
Well, I don't know what makes them do it, to tell you the truth. There's no... they certainly don't do it for the money. It's just the way of the life and where they've been brought up, I should think.
Any nasty occasions you can remember out there?
Oh, yes, quite a few. Once when we were bringing one of the local boats in with an easterly sea, we took a sea over a stern and absolutely filled her. But it drains out in seconds, so there's no problem.
Tom Jenkinson's home ground is the sparkling waters of Filey Bay. It looks pretty calm at the moment, but from the land, the bay can be deceptive. Out there, the breeze is brisk enough to make a trip in a sailing dinghy distinctly exciting. We've come to the Filey Sailing Club now to meet their Commodore, Edward Hanson. Mr. Hanson, you've got a couple of boats set out here for us to look at. What can you tell me about this one, the yellow one, first of all?
Well, this yellow one is mine. It's an Osprey. It's one of the largest sailing dinghies that is sailed. It's 17 feet 6 inches long and is one of the fastest boats as well.
Most of your boats here, I think, are for racing, aren't they?
Oh yes, the club exists primarily for racing, so that all the dinghies that you see around here are racing dinghies.
Is it possible to use a boat like this, though, for a family trip in the bay?
Oh, indeed.
On a day like this, though, maybe?
Well, I would think it was a bit too windy for a family sailing trip today.
So this is an Osprey, then. What about the brown one behind you? What kind of boat is that?
The brown one behind you is a Fireball. That's built in wood, or they can be built in fiberglass. It's smaller than the Osprey, but it's just about as fast. It's a lighter boat altogether, and it's perhaps even more of a racing boat than the Osprey.
Is it possible for that light boat to race against this heavy one?
Yes, all these boats have handicaps, which does mean that they can all race against each other, the fastest boat against the slowest boat.
Well, I suppose it's quite natural that if you put yachtsmen together with dinghies, they're going to want to race against each other. Out there in the bay, there are some 20 boats just waiting for the traditional starting signal. Mr. Vice Commodore, how's the counting going?
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now.
Down goes the flag, and the race is underway. How important is the actual start itself?
The start is absolutely vital, and you can often win or lose a race in those first few seconds. There's always a lot of jostling to be the first over the line, which of course is the ideal thing.
It's a matter of timing, isn't it, to be in the right place at the right time?
Yes, when you're sailing, you've got to keep a very accurate check as you're coming up to the start to make sure that you are as near the line, going as fast as possible when the gun goes.
And you've had quite a long countdown to the start too, haven't you, of course?
Yes, over a period of 10 minutes.
Now, they seem to be coming up to the first marker buoy. Now, how important is position here?
Well, the man first round the buoy has, of course, a big advantage because he's then in the lead on the next leg. But there are all sorts of rules to govern rights as you're coming up to a mark. You see now that the Enterprise is clearly going to be in the lead round this mark. Nobody else has caught him. And as he goes round the mark, he then gets onto a leg where the wind is from a different angle. He'll be travelling faster and he'll have the advantage. You can see as he comes round, he's got to make sure he doesn't hit it. If you hit the mark, you're out of the race, or you have to round it again. And then, having got round, he's no longer got the wind in front of him, and you see he's eased his sails out. His sails are much further over because the wind is coming much more from the side of the boat rather than from straight ahead.
And this is where the speed picks up now, is it?
This is where the speed picks up, yes. Now you see those are the lasers coming round.
The single-seat boats?
The single-hander boats, yes. They're a class that has grown enormously over the past few years. They're very light, quite difficult to sail, but very, very sporty. And the fleet here has increased from nothing a year or two ago now to it's a very large fleet.
How long would a race like this we've just seen, how long would that normally take to run?
Well, this race has been a short one today, but normally the races will last for about an hour and a half, depending on the wind conditions.
Also, it looks really exciting. What do you yourself get out of a sailing trip?
I think it's fascinating because it's totally absorbing, both mentally and physically, and it's a complete change from anything else. That's why I enjoy it.
A day like this, you can't be that odd, can you, really?
No, no, it's most exciting.
That was smashing. Jack Story, you're sort of the boss of this outfit. How did it come to be formed in the first place?
Well, a few of the lads, they belong to a larger choir, the fishermen's choir, who sing mainly in chapels, churches and the rest. And a few of them like to gargle afterwards, so they went to a local hostelry and found they could harmonise and sing and enjoyed it, so this group came out of that, really.
And how have you developed? Have you been abroad?
Been to Brussels for the for the Yorkshire Tourist Board. Found we were the only group there. We were representing the British Tourist Board. And been to Birmingham at an exhibition there.
And do you sing locally for charity and so on?
Yes.
What sort of thing?
All the monies we get, we give to charities.
And do you find people like the old-time songs best?
Well, they like all sorts. We do a few modern ones as well. We give a mixture if we can.
All right, what are you going to sing for us now, then?
Well, the real old-time, Moonlight and Roses.
OK.
Love's golden dream sparkling anew. Moonlight and roses bring memories of you. Moonlight and roses bring memories of you.
There's still an air of old-time tradition in the way a family holiday is enjoyed at Filey. A time when the restrictions of conventional dress and behaviour are thrown joyously to the winds. There may be sand in the sandwiches, the skin may be turning the shade of a boiled lobster, but you can always rely on Filey to be exactly the same as you remembered it from last year's fortnight at the seaside. An hour ago, I sounded a hooter to start the great hometown sandcastle competition. A gruelling test of endurance and civil engineering skill for 17 hard-working children and a team from the Scarborough Castle Round Table. Now they, believe it or not, are the world champion sandcastle builders, here to demonstrate the finer points of the art. There's a lot of careful thought going into the design and construction. With the tide well out, they're having to dig deep to find water for the moat. But the children are pitching in with enormous energy and enthusiasm, enough to gladden the heart of the world champion's team leader, Mike Ledbetter. Now, Mike, what is it makes a world champion castle? Is it size, quality, or what?
Well, for us, it is size. We've dug for 3 years charity sandcastles, and our biggest one is 15 foot, and we estimated it was well over 70 tons of sand had gone into this.
70 tons?
70 tons. That's 16 people. It's a lot of sand to sift, and a lot of chilblains and things on our hands. It was a lot of hard work.
Is this your standard design, the square castle with a moat?
Well, this is it as well. But mainly it is just tall and big. And over the 3 years, we've raised nearly £2,000 for charity for the Scarborough Lifeboat and things like this.
You find yourself doing exhibition sandcastle matches, do you?
Well, we haven't as yet, but I think in the future we could well be doing so.
Is there a possibility of a challenger coming up somewhere?
Well, we have offered challenges, but I think they think we're too good at the job, I think. This is the reason, really. We're too good at this.
Mike, I think it's a really splendid castle. Thank you for building it for us.
Right.
With that, the building must stop. The competition's come to an end. Now we come to the judging. And for that, we're joined by Miss Yorkshire Coast, Yvonne Hargreaves. Yvonne, you're impressed, I think, aren't you?
Yes, I am very impressed. A lot of hard work gone into all of them.
Mike, let's have a little look round at some of the exhibits. This one first.
It's extremely good, isn't it? It's even a homemade flag as well, I see.
A sensible use of lollipop sticks there too, I think.
Yes.
Now, this one I know you're rather taken by too.
Yes, it's they've even done the original wording of putting Filey on it with shells. That looks great.
You've only seen the little steps there.
The
rather
steps
nice,
going up, yes, it's lovely.
And a moat as well.
That is rather impressive. I like that one in the corner too, I must say myself. Nice little flags all over it. What do you think, Mike?
It's very bright. Yes, it's very bright indeed. Some super flags there.
Yvonne, the sandcastles on the top, they're nice, aren't they?
Yes, and they've got a little tunnel going through, I think.
All right, well, you've had a couple of moments to look at one or two of them. I'll leave you on your own just to look around and to make your minds up. And here he is, the winner of the great hometown sandcastle competition, a splendid entry. Tell me, how old are you?
8.
And where do you come from?
Filey.
You live in Filey, do you?
Yes.
You get plenty of practice then, don't you?
Yes.
What's your name?
Hayley.
Hayley, that's a smashing entry then. All right, then we're going to present you, Hayley, with the prize. Yvonne's going to give it to you. It's a rather splendid transistor radio.
Well done, Pet.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also some rock as well.
A stick of rock to boot. We've got sticks of rock, of course, for everybody who's taken part in it. And myself, I can't think of a better way to wrap up this particular programme. From hometown in Filey, then, a very good night to you.